It's creating entirely new ways of doing business that have never existed before in the history of the world. We have a chance of creating a much better world for everyone, a much fairer world, a much more open world. You don't need to steal gold's market cap. You're creating an entirely new market, potentially multiple, many. Africa's primed for a renaissance.
Kage,
G,
what up?
oh good man.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Centbee Show. I'm your host, Lorien Gamaroff, and my co-host is Kage. Wait, I haven't thought about anything for you today, Kage. Kage, Afro crypto legend, Inchangila. Kage, welcome to the show.
What's up, Miss G?
Yo. It's good to have you, and we got another great show today.
Oh yeah, we do, man. We have a very special guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And, normally I think people get tired of just hearing us give our opinions.
We always blabbing.
Yeah, we're always blabbing. We've got a message and we want to put that message out there. But today we're excited to have a very special guest, as you say.
Very special. Yeah.
Mr. Evan Freeman.
Yeah.
And he's living in Hawaii at the moment, but he's been somebody who's been around in BSV and fighting the Satoshi battles along with us.
Yeah, he's one of the soldiers, man.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, he's a general.
That's right. He's a Satoshi soldier, and he has been educating people around BSV and Satoshi's vision.
Yep.
And I've known him now for a couple years, and every time we meet and we're around the world at these different conferences, we always have the best conversations.
Yeah, and I also got the privilege to meet him at the London Blockchain Conference.
Yes, that's right. He came around to the booth and we tried to have a bit of a conversation there, but it was just the audio was bad. It was a busy conference.
But I think we're going to use some of the clips as part of this interview. Actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. But without further ado, we are very excited today to introduce and invite and have on the channel Mr. Evan Freeman. Evan, welcome to the show.
Well, cheers. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm a big fan of yours, Lorien, and the whole show and everything. So this is an exciting one.
Yeah, no, it's really great. We're trying to get people onto the show that, are really trying to also pave the way for Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with the news today, with Donald Trump's victory, BTC is pumping and Michael Saylor looks like a legend. And so, there's a very few voices out there that are trying to put down the real message, the reality of what Bitcoin was meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you're fighting like big corporates. You're fighting the media. You're fighting BlackRock. So that's quite hectic out there.
That's right. You're fighting people who now see a quick path to riches.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that Bitcoin is supposed to be a utility that you must now build on and put work into to generate real wealth.
But that's what it really is, though.
Yes.
I don't get it because that's what Satoshi meant, Bitcoin for it to be.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to now talk to Evan today. And Evan, it's great to have you. Thanks for joining us. You're based in Hawaii at the moment. And of course, you've got an amazing career in the last few years where you've been working with the Bitcoin SV Association as the Director of Education, I think it is, at the BSV Academy. A position that you don't hold anymore. But, while you were there, you did an incredible amount of work producing content. What we do here is we're trying to educate people about Bitcoin and Satoshi's vision. But you've been doing it on a very formal basis, actually generating very interesting content. And that content is available online today. And in fact, you are one of the instructors there. So if people want to know more about the BSV Academy and to take advantage of the great resources that are there. There's tons of videos that where you and your colleagues are explaining the basics and all that sort of thing.
Cool, yeah. Mr. Evan, I want to know that, how did it all start? I mean, when we're talking Bitcoin, we're talking the speculative one, and that's like the nature of the conversations out there. But you managed to, stick to the original protocol. And how did that journey start about?
Well, I mean, it's something purely whenever you read something, and if you're really actually open to it, then you can't get it out of your head. You can, I mean, maybe I'm just not somebody that can, just ignore such a great invention.
Yeah.
Perhaps the greatest invention since, I mean, you name it.
It's nice bread.
Yeah, straight up.
Right. But the thing is, obviously, it takes great kind of vision to see something that can be, but still isn't.
Yeah.
When I kind of began to learn about these things and blockchain, really, I knew quite early on that, okay, this is something quite revolutionary, and that it needs to be able to scale. It needs to be able to be useful, and by doing so, we have a chance of creating a much better world for everyone, all over.
Mm-hmm.
A much fairer world, a much more open world, and we all benefit from that. People may not realize it, but there is the whole butterfly effect, right? Where something can happen. We can go into a part of Africa, for instance, that is suffering from a lot of different sort of infrastructural challenges, and we can provide them a technological layer that enables them to do things that free them from those restrictions that the lack of infrastructure creates. And now is that time, right? Like, we have satellite internet. We're getting to the point now where we're able to provide people the tools to create a better life for themselves, for their communities, for their nations, and for everybody around the world, right? Somebody in Ghana, somebody in Nigeria, they can create an app and earn from it, and that will benefit me or somebody else's life here in America or anywhere else. And that's something that, and be able to earn from that.
Yeah.
Easily, simply, securely, entirely, peer to peer. That is something that, has never been possible before in the history of the world, and likely will create immense benefits for society at large. And so, to me, something of that nature is hard to ignore, and it would be, I think, it would be a travesty to do so. Now, I never got into this with some aspirations to be wealthy or anything of that nature. It's always been a technological interest. And, that's probably why I've been able to stay the line, so to speak, and maybe to my detriment in many ways. I know people who have gone and made immense amounts of money playing the game, and I never felt interested in doing that. And, maybe I should have. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Long run wise, my belief is, though, that we are moving towards a better understanding, like a global understanding of what technology is capable of. Still, the vast majority of people have not embraced BTC. And to the point where it's like, I don't know, probably like in the high 90 percentile of the world has not embraced BTC. The battle hasn't even begun, in a sense, right? But on top of that, there's a reason, right? Like, most people are not, they're not stupid. They realize that there's something wrong with it, right? they realized that there's something up with BTC. Yeah, I think we just, focus on the technical aspects, the utility. That's fundamental to anything, right? And that's where we're going to have all the benefits. But we don't benefit from a sort of value world.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this whole FOMO thing, and of course, the world is right now going through this ginormous, massive speculative mania.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just clear to understand if you understand the difference between value and price. We're living in this price world, not in a value world. And you mentioned utility, and of course, the idea of Bitcoin was that it was meant to be a utility, just like the internet was a protocol, the internet protocol that could help us build applications that could make our lives better and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But it is quite hard to sit on the sidelines, of course, when you see, and you mentioned your friend, everyone's making money. But I guess maybe we can take comfort in the movies like The Big Short, right? Where was it Michael Burry? He was sitting on the sidelines. He was saying, there's a collapse coming. The property markets are not properly valued, and he looked like a fool. And yet here we are, almost playing the same role where we believe that Bitcoin was meant to be useful, not just as you say, a store of value, because value means benefit, right? And BTC, I don't know what benefit it gives you, apart from a greater fool paying you for your Bitcoin. Just going back again to your experience with the BSV Association and the Bitcoin Academy specifically, a lot of what you were doing there was explaining to people how Bitcoin can be used. Obviously, it started out as a peer-to-peer cash, that really is how the white paper defined it. But we have seen now that it has a lot of use cases in other areas. And so could you just elaborate a little bit on that? How can Bitcoin SV provide utility and therefore value to the world instead of just being a speculative token?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what we did wasn't just dealing with the public, right, but also dealing with governments, particularly the Nigerian government and the Philippine government. And so I got to do some educational programs with them. And what we really wanted to focus in on was things like digital identity, things like land records, just even accounting and interoperability between the various agencies and departments. There was so many things that can be done within government to improve the lives of the citizens using blockchain, right? And I mean, I think there's a lot of fear too about those things, and that's kind of maybe the two sort of, or at least the biggest criticism of BSV is our sort of regulatory friendly, sort of, our focus on, and also to provide quite powerful tools to the government. But the beautiful thing about BSV and these tools is actually the amount of transparency they bring to governments. And that's what is the critical issue in a lot of countries around the world, not even just in Africa, even in America. What we wanted to do was to be able to say, hey, look, here's all these amazing things you can do. But on top of that, you can actually have a greater faith from your citizens in what you're actually doing, because everything is transparent. They can see what's going on. And, obviously it's a hard thing for them to do, to take that. There is a certain desire to maintain that sort of, secrecy, at least, opaqueness. And I've done some work in Jordan, and, some of the things we were doing there was on Transparency, and even educating Transparency International on how they can provide a greater level of transparency in Middle Eastern countries. It's not popular among those governments, but it's important, and they need to adopt those things, because if they don't, they will find themselves having more and more social upheaval. I think we're coming to a very pivotal point in human civilization now, where people are kind of really wondering, how useful is their government? What use is their government? Right? That's a big question in a lot of people's minds. It's big in America. That's what won the presidency for Trump, was government overreach, government opaqueness. BSV is here for everybody to use to make the world a better place. And I think, we should be very open with the US government, with, the Trump administration, to try to show them that this is not just about now. This is about the future of the world, ultimately, right? Like, do we want to live in the dark, especially when there's this beautiful thing that can really help to make things better for everybody. But it gets lost in that sort of speculatory trading asset nature, right? And that's what everybody just thinks about it. So educating these governments has been a challenge, but we've been able to really make some inroads. And I think, at the time, maybe they weren't, fully open to it. But I think as we see these next years unfold, governments will choose their future, one of transparency or one of potentially ultimately being disposed.
Yes, and we were fortunate to be in Nigeria a couple months ago, and we've been along with the BSV Association and all that, trying to encourage the Nigerian government to look at BSV as a utility blockchain and to avoid all the crypto speculation, as you say. Would you be able to share any insights into how the Nigerian government is utilizing blockchain? I know that you were involved with a lot of training of young people, but could you give us insight into how Nigeria is embracing utility blockchain with BSV?
We have adoption in Nigeria from the grassroots level, and I think it's the potential of adoption in Nigeria is massive. I mean, all of Africa. Africa is the place for BSV, not just BSV. Talking about a renaissance that can occur, right? Africa's primed for a renaissance. There is money available, even like investment wise. There's investment funds that want to invest in the tech sector in Africa to the tune of billions of dollars. The only reason why it's not more is because people haven't really caught on to it, maybe to what degree. But for instance, I'm helping out with a boot camp right now called No Long Ting. It's called Crypto Wednesdays or Crypto Mondays, one of the days, both days, that is being run out of the Caribbean. And we brought in 200 Nigerians to that first boot camp cohort. And these are entrepreneurs that are, developing a product or a business that's meant to, solve critical issues in their community. And so we've educated them, and that was our first boot camp, and now we're expanding further into Africa. So and already I think 12 participants or something. We're in the middle of selecting 12 participants to go to Paris to actually attend an incubators program there, all expenses paid. But Africa is undoubtedly, and we just saw, right, in Uganda, Uganda has been able to um, move forward, with the shilling, the BSV based shilling project, by Kite Financial and
Stablecoin.
and yeah, stablecoin. So that is exciting, right? So there's things happening in Africa, there's things happening in Nigeria, but still, people haven't fully caught on to the kind of opportunities that are there, the amount of potential adoption there, and really, it's unfortunate because that's where I feel like BSV can help people the most.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the whole education thing again. I
Mhm.
mean, at the end of the day, if people don't know that Bitcoin can be used for all this stuff,
Yeah.
then all they have is speculation and getting rich.
Well, but the African population is very open to BSV. When you teach them about it, I mean, they're people. I tell you, some of the smartest people you'll meet are in Africa.
We're in Africa.
Yeah, it's incredible. And frankly, I think a lot of them are kind of quite they once they hear it, they know, they catch on pretty quick. Maybe more so than people in the West, frankly, because people in the West, our lives are not as real in a way. They're more artificial, right? Like in Africa, life is, I think, not for everybody, but a lot of the decisions and being able to make a life, make a living there, it requires being able to ascertain the truth in a challenging environment.
That's true. That's true even. But do you have like any sort of like examples in terms of, real world implementations regarding PSV, especially like in Africa? Like how can it be used?
Well, the shilling, I think that shilling coin is hopefully going to be, the catalyst.
Yeah.
And I envision it as being the catalyst for the beginning of this currency war that will take place in Africa. And I don't mean because it's currency. Nobody's. I don't. Not like people are getting shot or anything. This is not like a war in the sense of that word. This is more of like a competition,
Yeah.
and it will be Uganda and frankly, I was surprised. I thought Nigeria would be first, but or I hoped at least, just because they're the biggest. But it seems like Uganda's taking that first step, and if they go through with it, we could see the adoption of a BSV based stablecoin in Uganda and then abroad, as more and more people will use it throughout Africa, because just the ease of using it, it'll be so easy to use it, and the value will be improved because of it, right? The utility of it, creates additional value for the shilling. If it can be fully released, I feel like it will do really well, and it will spark a bunch of different additional BSV based currency stablecoins throughout Africa. And that will be the beginning of an African Renaissance for sure.
Most definitely, yo. And also, I wanted to like also just touch on like the digital identity. Like, I think I sort of like see it like also fitting like in that use case, especially in Africa. I mean, we move around in Africa, and also it's quite important just to consider the regulations regarding that. So I think BSV could be also like a nice fit in that.
And documentation is not very good when it comes to ID.
Because we've came across that, like if we had to KYC some of our customers, some documents are sort of look like not in good shape, and it's hard to verify such. So I think maybe digital identity.
That's a huge thing, right? Because what people don't realize with digital identity is it's not like, oh, all of a sudden I can go to the, I mean, you know, people use that example, right? All of a sudden my daughter or my whatever can go to the bar and she can prove that she's of age and she can go drink, or he can drink, and still not have to reveal all their private details, like their house address and all this other thing, like on your driver's license, right? That's like the commonly, you know, held narrative of why a digital identity is good. But I think it goes way beyond that, right? Like all of a sudden people can start who didn't have the identity documents and whatnot to even establish something as simple as a bank account, or, you know, all of a sudden those people can get loans.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden those people can, you know, it opens up access to capital. It opens up access to services, education. You know, not having a digital identity, I think, is a massive detriment.
Yeah.
For people who live in countries where, you know, those kinds of things, it's normal not to have even those documents, right? Like it's probably a fraction of the population of Nigeria has, you know, the proper you know, the documents, right? And, you know, it's that can be easily changed and done in a way that it still allows them to retain their privacy and ownership over their data.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's where the line needs to, you know, and that's the beauty of, you know, BSV, right? Is it's like we can have both. we can have the benefits of a system that ensures authenticity, but at the same time is not like some kind of overburdensome police state.
Yeah.
Right. Like all of a sudden we can have both. And so that's kind of, you know, the beauty of digital identity. And I think why it's important for people in Africa.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, you know, what Centbee, you know, what our mission is, of course, is to try and realize the idea of BSV, Bitcoin, as digital cash.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've been for years now trying to make Bitcoin easy to use in Africa. You know, our biggest market really is Nigeria. And so, you know, we've been trying to get people to think of BSV as digital cash. But of course, volatility is a problem still.
The progression of money, right? Like in order to achieve the status of money, right, you have to satisfy the unit of account, medium of exchange, and store value. And obviously cash is different. Cash is not necessarily money, right? But you know, but the big issue is, right, if you're using BSV as money, is you know, any of these things, because they haven't satisfied those attributes yet, and because of the volatility, or because of the low velocity creates stability. So there's very low velocity in any of these, you know, cryptocurrencies or anything like that. Very little. And that velocity, without it, you're not going to have any stability. And if you can't have any stability, then you can't run a business, right? Because you won't know, you know, day to day how much money your business has. You know, one day you'll be down, you'll lose $5,000, and the next day you may be up, and next day you're down. And keeping it as using it as money, unfortunately, is not possible, and it won't be possible truly until, you know, it is a unit of account, it is a medium of exchange, widely so. And then by doing those two things, it becomes a store of value, right? It's almost like a sequence. Although unit of account, you know, and medium exchange is a hard one, because, you know, you can't, you know, we know obviously that store of value comes last, but which one comes first, right? Medium exchange or unit of account? Yeah, and unit of account being like, you know, when you go to the store and the price is in BSV, right? Like it's, that's what unit of account means. So, it's, which is, are you going to go to the store and all of a sudden everything's going to be priced in BSV? Or are people going to be like using it first, just, as money?
Yeah, just talking about that, obviously this whole idea of peer-to-peer cash is very dear to us and close to us. This is something that we want to see realized in our lifetimes, I'm hoping. Hey, Kage?
Definitely.
But,
It will happen before it happens anywhere else.
Yeah. So, when I think about the volatility of BSV at the moment, we still have a universe of crypto out there.
Yeah.
And of course, crypto, there's very little fundamental basis for value. It's all about hype and mania and pumping and dumping and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, BSV has kind of been dragged along with it. People don't look at BSV as a utility token. They just see it as another crypto. And of course, as BTC goes, everything else goes.
Is affected, yeah.
And so we don't live in a world right now where people can clearly and without emotion evaluate a technology to see how useful it is. And therefore, when we're pricing BSV, it seems that it's not being priced on its utility because very few people realize that it has utility. And also, of course, we still are yet to see massive scale. Of course, Terranode is doing well in that regard, but we don't look at BSV as a utility token, and there's no natural demand for it.
There hasn't been mass adoption, and people don't know how to price it or look at it or why they should buy it or own it or use it. For the most part, at least, while being incredibly useful, still there's a major lack of services that are making it widespread useful. And so people aren't necessarily going to want to jump onto a network until there's like a certain amount of mass, and the mass needs to kind of come from usage, right? And this is probably even more important in the sense of like getting people to use it as cash, is for people to be able to earn it. If you want people to use it, then you need to be able to give people the power to earn it instead of just buying it, right? Because when you buy it, then it's an investment. But if you're earning it, then it's money in a way, right? That's you're trading your time for that, your energy for that, and then you're using that to pay for your life. So I think, and in Africa, there's great opportunity to earn. And I think particularly for developers, particularly for all, a lot of even educators now, whether or not, and that's what we were looking to try to set up, right, was a way for Africans to earn BSV. And then thereby, if they're earning it, then they're going to use it, right? That's what you need. So in my opinion, if anybody out there is listening that really wants to, foster adoption, they need to look at businesses that allow people to earn. And I think you guys do that, like I know to some degree, and maybe more is necessary, but obviously there's challenges to that, no doubt. It's all about people in the end. This is the thing about all, like, this is what a lot of BTC people don't get, is that, in the end, it's about the individuals. And when you're giving the individual an opportunity to do something, then that creates something, right? That creates growth, that creates momentum. The reality is that, BSV it's creating opportunities, right? It's not taking, it doesn't need to take money from the gold market cap, because it's creating entirely new ways of doing business that have never existed before in the history of the world, right? Like, you don't need to steal gold's market cap. You're creating an entirely new market, potentially multiple, many, right? And I mean, it's revolutionary. All of a sudden you can pay per second to stream a video. You don't have to watch ads now. And if you don't like the movie, you can turn it off. You don't have to pay for the whole damn thing. This kind of stuff is revolutionary in that it brings the opportunities to the individual.
Yeah.
And it's very individually focused. And we're a world of individuals. Okay. That's like, it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, we're American or whatever. We're a world of individuals. And so we need to speak on an individual level. We need to create opportunities for individuals so that they can, use those opportunities to build more and earn more and create more and foster more. And then we'll see people using.
You spoke about, being involved in Nigeria and Africa and all of that, but it seems like, like your footprint is all over. Like, I've also, I checked out a clip of you in the Philippines there. So what was the project at hand there?
So the Philippines is a wonderful place. There's a lot of just really open, smart people there that do want to build a better future for the country.
Yeah,
it has the potential is massive, right? To a lot of degrees, the Philippines has a lot of talent too that it can draw from, although Nigeria as well, frankly. But the Philippines is maybe a little bit more mature in the market, although the vast majority of the Philippine professionals are working abroad. They have a large diaspora. So, these are people who are, not all are contributing, obviously, to the Philippine economy, although a good amount of them send back remittances. So that's one important way that BSV can play a role is, helping to facilitate remittances to the Philippines. It's a huge part of their economy. On top of that, they really are wanting to use blockchain in infrastructure. So whether it's dealing with like disaster zones caused by tropical storms, with agriculture, making sure that insurance payments are reaching the right people, things of that nature, and then of course they really are. They want to make sure that they're not embracing potentially hazardous, speculative, gambling cryptocurrencies, right? Like, the Philippines and a lot of countries, governments are very concerned about those kind of, just because the potential for their citizens to lose a lot of money is big. So, they wanted to learn about, those things as well. So we've done programs there with the Department of Information and Communications Technology, with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Central Bank of the Philippines, and others, to educate them on all of these various sort of details and to present to them a different perspective, right? The perspective that we're discussing here, which is, let's look at this as a technology, not as an investment, and see what we can do. And so there's been some pretty serious talk, seriously considering using BSV to form the basis for a digital archive.
Cool. Thanks, Ev. And so, you mentioned about the Caribbean. There's a Bitcoin SV project going on there, and I'm very keen to know more about that project, who's involved, and what the goals are for that project.
Yeah, sure. So, No Long Ting is the brainchild of Brian Mondo from Blockchain Lex. He's a lawyer and held in pretty high regard in the Caribbean, and he's put together quite a sort of series of events, a boot camp with a few other different organizations that are just basically looking to educate developers first in the Caribbean, but we wanted to expand it also to Africa. And so we've also brought in a cohort from Nigeria, and we've just established an African arm of this organization to replicate what we're doing in the Caribbean. But the idea is to educate entrepreneurs on how they can use BSV to build, businesses and solve critical issues in their communities. And this is, it's great because, not only are they learning about it, but, it has a sort of incubator aspect to the winners of this. They have a project stage in the No Long Ting bootcamp. The winners of that project stage also receive capital, investment effectively into their idea with no strings attached. So they don't even have to necessarily build it. Although, obviously that's what we want them to do, right? That's just the beginning. If they want to actually go and build this, then we provide them, a lot of coaching and other opportunities, including sending, we're sending 12 individuals to Paris to attend an incubator there. It's quite a exciting project. We have some really great people in there. Give a shout out to Gabrielle. She's been just amazing, both helping the Caribbean side of things and the African side of things, and there are quite a few women as well who are participating in this. So it's exciting. The hope is that this will become a one-stop shop education incubator accelerator for entrepreneurs in Africa, in the Caribbean, focusing in on these, developing countries, people who are ignored, really, right? Like, these are entrepreneurs who don't have access to, like, even close to Silicon Valley, right? Like, this is, these are people who have, the potential. They truly do. And these are projects that, are focused on solving real issues. The outcome, if they are successful, doesn't just benefit, the business and the boot camp, the incubator, accelerator, but it benefits, the community. We want to see what we can do and how we can help promote BSV in these places. And the reception has been very positive. The students are always sending me messages asking about BSV and things about it. So, and then these are people who had, very few of these people, had any knowledge of blockchain before coming. I know there's been a lot of this in the BSV Association about trying to educate Ethereum developers and stuff like that. But the reality is that most of those people are Ethereum developers only because they want to, create a coin or something, an NFT or whatever, to make money. These are not the people we want. We want people who are, very much concerned with the status of their community and want to better it and have real solutions. And these things are, maybe not super attractive to investors, at least at the moment, but they are, I would say, important drivers for adoption. Because maybe the return doesn't come so great back to us, and maybe the person can live off the business, right? That's wonderful. But the impact that it makes in people's lives, and then they begin to use BSV, right? This goes back to using and earning. This is meant to facilitate that and grow that adoption. That's the aim of this. For me, I do want to also, push greater education in America, because I mean, this is an opportunity. And let me just say this about the current rally, right? And we can call it the Trump rally or something.
We do.
The very reality of this Trump rally is that it's just an opportunity for these pumpers to pump it. That's all it is. It has no basis in anything that Trump has done. He's said some things, but reality is that this is just it's just news, right? Like, sell the news. That's what they say. That's the Wall Street mantra. The news is that Trump's pro crypto. Sell it.
That's the rumor. Yeah, the rumor is that he's going to buy his million BTC, but the fact will be, whether he does or not.
This will be a good time because I think, sure, we have this pump and everything like that, but what will come out of it is there will be a greater analysis of this space, of blockchain. What can it do? And what is out there that's actually capable of doing it? That's the key, I think, takeaway that we can hopefully expect, from this administration. Maybe not directly, but just as a result. Sure, we've all been a bit dissuaded by how many supposedly intellectual people are completely lost when it comes to Bitcoin. There's a great deal of people who purport to be quite intelligent who are in fact completely off the rocker when it comes to this stuff.
Miseducated.
Yeah, well, I mean, like people who are supposedly very well educated, but the reality is that they're not open. They're not open to actually wanting to learn something here. And that's the big issue, right?
Not when there's money on the table. It can't last forever. At the end of the day, reality needs to set in. And we've had speculative manias in the past, but if they're not built on anything of substance, then it can't go to the moon forever. I saw this tweet about from Peter Schiff, and he says, the way Michael Saylor is buying Bitcoin is he buys Bitcoin, it pumps the price up. Then his shares go up in value, and then he sells more shares, buys more Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin BTC goes up.
But he's not buying the Bitcoin with his own money.
Yeah,
not even his. It's all it's all from, like, what, 40% of the investment in MicroStrategies is institutional. So more, maybe, actually, probably more, but at least 40% is institutional. I think 20% is BlackRock, right? So even that's not BlackRock's money. They don't. That's not their money that they're investing. That's somebody's money, right? That's my parents' money. That's money that belongs to all kinds of people who have no say in how that's being invested. They trust that it's being invested well, and maybe Michael Saylor is aware. Like, I don't know, how stupid is this guy, right? Does he not know?
He seems pretty stupid.
And I'll play. There's all these people that are sucked up into this mindlessness. I'll reap the benefit. He has enough money to manipulate the market and play people.
He's making $500 million a day, didn't you hear?
These people are pirates. These people are they're looking to make a payday. They're not looking to make people feel happy. He's playing everybody.
Look, we're definitely living in crazy times. This is not normal, what we are living through right now. Everyone seems excited, of course, because Moon. But we know that where this is going to end. And of course, there are always the contrarians who sit on the sidelines and just hold their heads in their hands and can't believe what's going on. And the masses just, tumble off the cliff. But at least people who are involved and understand Satoshi's vision for Bitcoin, what it was meant to be, know that what's going on out there is madness. Now, of course, FOMO is real. But you've got to have that gambling mindset. We don't know how long this is going to last. We know it's not going to last forever. And if you're in it, you are gambling, and you're going to have to treat it like gambling. Don't think that you're now in this new paradigm with BTC, store of value, digital gold. I mean, really, when this all blows over, we're going to look back and think, how crazy could we have been to believe in that? But Ev, I think what you've done is, you've given us at least a bit of comfort. There's a lot of work that's been going on. I mean, you've been doing so much work across the world, bringing education to people, and of course engaging in with governments and with corporates. And so we really appreciate all the work that you've been doing over these years. And I certainly have enjoyed meeting up with you at these conferences. And interacting and getting your thoughts. And we got a few thoughts in this show. And I think maybe, what we would just like to know is your final thoughts. Where do you think we are headed over the next year or two? Are you optimistic about the growth of Satoshi's vision in terms of Bitcoin? Or do you still think that there's going to be a couple of years of madness where people, drink the Kool-Aid and get sucked down the rabbit holes? What's your outlook? And then also, what new projects or what are you going to be busy with over the next couple months, year or so?
Yeah, so I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic because, I feel like, particularly as the world becomes a little bit less stable, which we're seeing, the sort of dissolution of to a degree of the global order and all the sort of drama that comes with it. And it's easy to be caught up in a negative, when you see that, it's easy to be like, oh, everything's going to hell. But I think that it's good. It pushes people to find solutions quickly. If they're aware, if they're paying attention, at least. And so I feel like, okay, well, no longer can this ignorance or at least ignoring the fact that, hey, the system is not being able to effectively accomplish what it needs to be in order for people to have, a good life generally. And then two, the fact that, people are, I think, much more open to technology like BSV, particularly BSV, because there's very few real experts. Most of them are learning, right? Like there's so much still to be uncovered and realized. It's a journey. It's not, nobody's at the end of it yet. Maybe Satoshi, right? But even he doesn't know all the intricacies of his creation, right? Like that's, it's beyond the knowledge of any, we won't maybe for 100 years know all the things that are possible, right? Because we just haven't even conceived of the potential in so many ways. But at least the very fact that people are, I think, open to, hey, like maybe we need to look at blockchain seriously, right? Like governments are like, hey, we need to really look at this stuff and figure out what the hell's going on. And not just get caught up in the trading speculation narrative. There has been a rejection of it by the vast majority of people, and by most governments. And I think that's a positive sign. That it's people want to really, they want something serious. They want something real. They want something that's going to make their lives better, not just make a bunch of, wannabe hedge fund managers or whatever, rich. So I'm very optimistic. And my goal is very much, to educate, but not just to educate, like, from an academic sense, but to educate the world, push this stuff deep into every aspect of life, deep to the point where it's going to come from the ground up, right? We're planting seeds, and we want to plant, we want to plant seeds in places where when they grow, they'll spread. And so that's what I will continue to do. and look to try to, use this technology to really create a better world for as many people as we can.
Well, that's fabulous. I mean, that's totally what we gel with as well, and we appreciate your efforts. And we encourage you, and we are supporting you, and very grateful for having you in the ecosystem. So thanks so much.
No, thank you guys. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure. And hopefully we can do more of these.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we're not over yet, because one of the things that we all want to ask our guests, the most controversial question there is in Bitcoin. And we're very keen to get your thoughts around this. The mystery of who is Satoshi Nakamoto. There was a recent Netflix documentary we talked about, and they said it's Peter Todd.
Yeah, did you watch it?
We did.
Once I found out at the ending, I was just like, wow, that sounds terrible. And then plus, I don't want to watch Samson Mao talk.
No, it's quite funny, because Samson gets the ear of presidents and the third richest man, Mr. Salinas, and he's talking about store value, and every one of these guys, they're actually skeptical, but guys like Samson Mao, they're just drunk on this Kool-Aid, and they really think they've got an argument, but. It's not worth watching if you want to have hope that this BTC thing is going to fade away. It just seems like it's amped up. But
that documentary was like resoundingly rejected.
Yes, of course.
And I think that's a good sign.
It is a good sign. Yeah. But your thoughts though
in the recent court case with Craig.
You mean Dr. Craig Wright?
Yeah. Yeah. So in that court case, the reality was that the evidence that was presented in that court case against Dr. Wright was not adequately even investigated. And on top of that, the evidence that was for Dr. Wright being Satoshi wasn't even presented to the court. And so to me, that whole trial is highly suspect. And obviously the outcome of that trial to me is not something that I would, I agree with. And I think, Craig deserves an appeal and a proper trial, that all the evidence is not only, his evidence that is presented, but also that the evidence against him, which frankly, I do believe if it had been properly analyzed, would actually show the opposite of what was interpreted by the judge.
So you were saying that the court case, you don't believe that it proved that Dr. Craig Wright isn't Satoshi, because that's what, of course, was on the table. Is he Satoshi? Isn't he? Are you saying that you think that Dr. Craig Wright
did not disprove that he is Satoshi at all? I feel like, if anything, it opens up more questions in some regards to how the trial was handled. And who the experts witnesses were, and the test and some of their testimony. And I think all those things, frankly, if you're going to do a trial and you're going to dismiss the most credible person as being Satoshi, right? If you're going to disprove him, then there needs to be a proper analysis of the evidence, and all of the evidence needs to be presented. And only then can there be a definitive ruling. And I think, anything short of that, to me, is not a good ruling. It's not a good judgment. I don't think, anybody that really looks at the case, it would be hard, I think, for them to if they have a real understanding of what the evidence that was presented was and what wasn't presented. I think it'd be hard for them to honestly conclude that Dr. Craig Wright is not Satoshi. I don't think that's possible. But that's probably why the evidence was, not presented, right? Mm-hmm. Why his evidence was not presented. And that's also probably why the evidence that was presented against him had been interpreted by people who aren't, qualified to actually analyze that.
Okay, so it sounds like you think Craig Wright is a good candidate for the Satoshi Nakamoto pseudonym.
I mean, there's nothing to me that disproves him as being Satoshi Nakamoto.
Okay. Great. Well, I mean, that's it speaks a lot. Of course, he is probably the most hated man in crypto. The irony.
The guy's a genius, right? Like, and that's, and who knows at what level. But it makes it it probably pisses off a lot of people. And on top of that, he might not be, might not manage the publicity and the sort of all that stuff very well. I come from the real world, right? You guys too, and the real world is a bit messy, and people don't, like, it's not like a Hollywood movie where people are like this person acts this way, and that, and I know a lot of people wanted that what is his name, Lorien Nakamoto, to be Satoshi because of his friendly,
goofy,
sort of bearing, right? Like that's what people want, and people don't want a somewhat disgruntled, incredibly intelligent and somewhat angry man. And I mean, he's not, maybe not so angry now, but you got to remember he had been on the receiving end of intense, harassment and other things, right? People are not realistic if they just think that, that Craig or that Satoshi Nakamoto is going to be this, perfect person.
Docile.
But yeah, to me, there's nobody else in the arena that has presented any amount of, evidence or anything that I would make me think that they could be Satoshi. And there hasn't been any, evidence that has come out against Craig that makes me think that he is not Satoshi.
Right. Well, I mean, that pretty much gels with our thinking, and it kind of makes sense that Dr. Wright is just so mad. I mean, imagine inventing something and then the world takes it and butchers it and turns it into something it's not. So I could definitely get, where he's coming from. But that was great. Thanks, Evan, for enlightening us with your thoughts around that. It's refreshing, of course. The Satoshi, I always say that he's not the Satoshi we wanted, but he was the Satoshi we needed. And so I'm very grateful for him.
A great example, right, of his, and we could probably do like hours just talking about Craig, Satoshi, right? But I mean, probably the clearest indication that he knows what the hell he's talking about is the fact that, Terranode, something that, everybody, the most respected researchers in computer science and blockchain said was impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
scaling Bitcoin,
there's something there. There's a saying, the proof is in the pudding, maybe. It's all the talk, but like, where's that? What's the result? Show me, and people want him to sign his keys or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that's not in itself proof that anybody is anybody, right?
That's right. Yeah.
If I have the keys to your house, does that mean that it's my house now? Or what about your car, right? I'll just go take your car keys and now it's my car. It doesn't jive with reality, right? Like this, this perspective. So
it's definitely a fascinating subject, one that keeps a lot of people up at night, especially in BTC, considering Craig is now bringing a passing off case. And so that's going to be exciting to watch. We're on the sidelines. We've got our popcorn. Yeah. But great. No, thanks so much, Evan. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you again and hearing your thoughts around this whole space. And also, of course, the work that you have done and continues to do. I just want to encourage people to go check out the BSV Academy, because there's a wealth of resources there, lots of great videos. And Evan is just such a wonderful teacher. You can see, he's got such a nice, calm, collected way of putting his thoughts together. And it's a real pleasure to watch those training videos. I've learned a lot, even though I've been working with Bitcoin for years. it's nice to go back and just check, what are the little bits and pieces? And of course, having an understanding of the full picture really empowers you to be able to go out and then, be an entrepreneur and develop wonderful things for people to use. And that's how you can make lots of money, by serving others and producing things. Yeah. So Evan, thank you very much. We're grateful for you, and we thank you for having you on. Well, thanks for having you. Thank you for being on the Centbee Show.
It's been a pleasure as always, gentlemen, and I look forward to next time. Thank you.
Awesome. All the best. Take care, and hope to see you in Hawaii one day soon.
Absolutely.
Cool stuff. Thanks, Ev. Cheers. Great to hear his perspective. He's been involved with so many different initiatives to bring Bitcoin BSV awareness to the world from east to west. And he's done a lot of work there with Nigeria. The NITA, the National Information Technology Development Agency, they are very excited about blockchain, and the BSV Association has been very much involved there to bring education, and they've trained hundreds of thousands of young people on blockchain. Now, of course, Nigeria, the whole African continent. That's why we're so excited about Africa. The cliche was always that Bitcoin will rise in Africa. There's a need for low-cost digital cash. Yeah. We see such a fantastic opportunity. And, we're very excited about bringing BSV education to Africa. And then thereafter, hopefully people can now figure out, this is about cash. It's not about investing. It's about shopping. It's about sending money to family. And the BSV Association has done a lot of great work in that regard. And we're very glad to have them as partners in a way. We're fighting for the same ideals. We're fighting the same battle. And there's just so many crypto projects out there that look good on the surface. But, the real technology that really makes a difference, of course, is Bitcoin SV. So we also want to thank you for supporting the show with your likes and your comments. Our subscribers are growing. And we really appreciate all that. So keep watching the Centbee Show. We're going to be here. And we hope to shed some light on the madness out there that is crypto. I want to thank you all for joining us here today on the Centbee Show. Please come back soon. Bam.